and I'm in the stands, and sitting one seat behind me was Stu Inman. And I knew Stu from way back from when he was in high school coaching in the Fresno area.
Okay.
And so I just asked him how he was doing and whatever, and he's fine. So I asked him had they hired a coach with the Trailblazers because I knew he was working with the draft first. That's why they hired him to do the draft. And he said, "No, are you interested?" And I said, "Sure." And so he said, "Well, let me talk to Harry Glickman tonight, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. You'll be at the tournament, yeah." So he comes back and he said, "What's your agenda after when you leave here?" And I said, "I'm going to Hutch for the National JC tournament, and then I'm going to DC for the Final Four. That's my." He said, "Could you work it out to stop in Chicago?" Well, probably I was going to have to stop in Chicago anyway, especially in those days.
Yeah.
And he said, "Harry is there for some meetings, and he wants to meet with you." So we met at the airport. We talked for a couple hours. I thought it went great, and I went on and did my recruiting, and I'm recruiting. I don't even think I don't even know if I have a prayer, of anything. I had no expectations. So about 3 weeks goes by, and there's a call for me in the office at school. And so I get on the phone, and it's Stu, and he says, "Could you fly to San Francisco tomorrow? And we're going to be at the Hilton on the airport. The San Francisco airport used to have the Hilton." I said, "Sure." They sent me a ticket. I went. We had another nice 2-hour call. I don't hear anything. I go after that. So I have my big recruiting weekend. I brought in like 4 or 5 guys that were key guys. Went great. Take them to the airport on Sunday to go home after their visit. Walk in my apartment, the phone's ring. I answer the phone and said, "It's Harry Glickman saying, how would you like to be the coach of the Trailblazers?" That's how 2 conversations, no idea, no expectations, and that's how I got here.
I had no expectations of coming with the Portland Trailblazers. I was doing baseball in the Seattle Pilots up in Seattle, Coast League baseball and everything. And then that first year with the Seattle Pilots, all of a sudden they realized that the owners of the teams in the American League, they all got together and took the franchise away from Seattle because they had no stadium.
Right.
I could have gone. They became the Milwaukee Brewers. I thought I did have a chance to go with the ball club, and I decided to stay in Seattle. Radio and TV work was going on pretty good in those days. Harry and I met during the hockey season because I did the hockey in Seattle, and Harry had the Portland Buckaroos here. And he called me up in his big Dave voice. He said, "Sean, how would you like to do NBA basketball?" Well, I was doing everything but basketball. I said, "Well, that sounds like a pretty good deal." Came down, talked for about 5 or 6 minutes, shook hands. That's 50 years ago.
That's the deal.
That's how I got here.
Well, you knew that if Harry gave his word for something, it was a done deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever it was. So, and he said, "You got to hurry because we want to do a press conference in Portland the next day." So they sent me a ticket, and I went, and I stayed at the Benson, which is still my favorite hotel. And they did a little press conference, and end of the story. And I already knew they'd drafted you, and I had seen you play in January. I was recruiting. I had some days off. I recruited in New York, and the guy who showed me around says, "We didn't have somebody to see." He said, "Let's go see Princeton play." And you were playing Fordham,
Right.
and you had a really good game, and so did Johnny Hummer.
Right.
And then when I heard you drafted, he said, "Good, that's good. I would have made that. That's a draft choice I would have made." So
Geoff, were you disappointed you were picked by an expansion team, or had you even thought of that
Oh, I wasn't disappointed. My experience with Harry was a little bit shorter than Sean's or Roland's. I was at school, and the NBA draft, it wasn't anything like it is now. It wasn't a great big production or anything, and wasn't on TV and all that. And I probably had just turned in my senior thesis, and the phone rings, and it's the same thing like you, Sean. This is Harry Glickman, and we've just selected you number 7 or 8, whatever it was, in the NBA draft. Can you get out here tomorrow? I go, well, and that's kind of how it started, you know. And of course, without Harry, none of us would be sitting here.
You know how I found out that? Because I just finished my 3rd year in San Diego with the Rockets, which is now the Houston franchise, and I was a starter, and so I knew I wasn't on the expansion draft. I got a call from my father-in-law. You know, my wife was from Portland, Oregon, and went to high school here and met her at University of Oregon, of course. I got a call from my father-in-law, and he said, "Welcome home." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" He said, "Well, you're a Portland Trailblazer." I said, "I wasn't in the expansion draft. There's no way." And there had been a trade, but they had forgotten to call me. And so I called Stu. I talked to Stu Inman, and I remember him saying, "Can you please not tell anybody how you found out that you're a Blazer?" That's exactly how it was. Absolutely. And so I thought, wow, this is kind of interesting. You know, I was really set in San Diego, and I loved it down there. But to come back to Oregon, it was kind of cool, and I felt like I had a new lease on life. And of course, with your offense, Rolland, it was perfect. I'd figured out how to play, and your offense was so dynamic with the movement that you get backdoor cuts, you get layups, which I really like to do. And you never got double teamed because everybody was moving, and so I was a good one-on-one player with a good first step, and it fit me perfectly. And of course, I had the best year of all my entire 11 years in the NBA.
You never knew what you were going to do.
No. Well, you want to be spontaneous. You don't ever want to.
That's right.
He didn't know what he was going to do.
That's right.
Well, and you didn't have to make up your mind ahead of time.
Nope. No.
You just read what was there and went through the open door, whatever that open door was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the idea in putting the offense together in the first place.
What did you like about that first year team?
Well, the thing I liked about it is we delivered what I told Harry we would deliver, which is nobody got cheated if they came to a Trailblazer game. They got their money's worth, whether we won or lost. And those times we beat somebody really good, I mean, that was like ice cream, you know, that was a deal.
It was fun beating the Knicks, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And it was fun beating Milwaukee, too.
Exactly. And, you know, and Milwaukee wins the whole thing.
The whole thing
later on.
I think I got here, Gary Giger broke his leg or broke his ankle. And they traded me here at the second game to play with big forward and small forward.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only way I got here.
Were you a big forward or a small forward?
Yeah, big forward. Big forward.
Long arms.
But I looked at you, Shaler, as you were always a guard.
Yeah.
And a scorer, and I knew Shaler from community college in California before he went to Utah State, and so we started 4 guards, you know, all the time.
Well, I mean, your offense was all about pace, and that's all you hear now is to play with pace.
Listen, we could get it up and down the court.
Yeah, we could.
And when we got another team running, they were in trouble. And that's why we beat Atlanta early in the year, and Lou Hudson was playing for Atlanta, and he was lighting us up in the first half.
So was Maravich.
And they were up like 18 at halftime.
Yeah.
We beat them by 18, because in the second half, they ran out of gas because it was
I
early.
was guarding Lou Hudson, and he got 57 that night.
Yeah, I know. Well,
Only 57, Jeff.
but he could go off like that,
I
you
know.
know. But
You
at
need
the
to
end,
foul out before they get that many.
but at the end of the game, they were holding on to their shorts. You know, at the free throw line, they couldn't go. They had, because it was early. The old motto in the league was work your way into shape, you know, come to camp. But and then you know, when you start playing games, you improve your conditioning, and they just weren't ready yet.
Of course, yeah.
But they were ready when we went back to play them. If you remember that, the score. Somebody looked it up last night. The coach Stoss looked it up. And it was 150 to 110 or something. They killed. I mean, they were running and gunning and whatever. Here's something nobody would remember. We're in the locker room. We got killed. You know, they were laying. I mean, they were ready this time. And knock on the door. And I go to answer the locker room door, and there was this body that filled the whole door, and it was Bubba Smith, who was the defensive end for and you know, an All-Pro and a Hall of Famer and the whole thing. And he said, "Can I come in?" I said, "You can do anything you want to do," because you know he was a mammoth body. There was just a little space around his head, but he had the rest of it taken care of. So that kind of eased the pain of well, you get beat that bad, it isn't even painful. I mean, you know, it's just like, okay, that one's over. And
We had a good time. All you guys had a good time, except me. Look at the size of the coaching staffs now to what you had.
none.
You, a trainer, the team, me.
No.
That was it.
Yeah.
And on one trip, we had my son, who was 7, who was the other coach on the bench.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, no team in the league, it wasn't Portland was short or whatever, there was no team had assistant coaches. Now the suits are lined up. You know, you don't know how many assistants they have.
Sometimes you have to be lucky, and I think you're very lucky that Geoff Petrie fell into your lap. You know,
Yeah, well, for
sure, you got to draft wisely and stuff, but sometimes it doesn't pan out. But I played with and against all these Hall of Famers,
Right.
and Geoff Petrie was. I mean, he should be a Hall of Famer, and I know he got hurt and his knee and everything, and had it tough. But he averaged 25 points a game as a rookie that year.
I've been
He was
telling
he was
it.
unbelievable. I mean,
Right.
I used to guard West. I guarded Oscar Robertson, Frazier, Monroe, all those guys. And whenever I played against him after I left after the first year, he's their equal. And I've always said that. I've talked to a lot of people through the years how good Geoff Petrie was, and he would have had a Hall of Fame career if he hadn't gotten hurt.
I've been saying that for 50 years.
People don't know.
Because the knee injury was such a freak. I mean, it was a nothing thing. Weren't you just picking up a ball
I was working out at Portland State all
Right.
by myself.
and picking up a ball and hyperextended the knee, and it caused a small tear, which got worse, you know, because you kept playing. But I mean,
But no one could stop his jump shot.
no.
And Jeff, remember I used to, in training camp, and you're always going to defer a little bit when you're a rookie. And so he's hanging out with me a little bit. We're having lunch. And I kept calling him the whole first week, Jerry. And he never said anything about it. And so we were into the second week, and we go to lunch. And he said, Jim, I want you to know, this was my 5th year in the league, so I was a veteran. He said, my name is Jeff. I said, I understand that, but you're the next Jerry West. That's why I'm calling you Jerry. I mean, I could see it. I mean, he was special.
He was great.
It's nice of you guys to say that, but I'm a little bit like you, Jimmy. I mean, Rolland's offense was was perfect because I came from a style of play in college, which was passing and cutting and
Right.
moving, and it just all fell together. And lots of times that has a lot to do with how you get started and having people around you that have confidence in you. And we had a fun bunch of guys that really enjoyed playing with each other, and it was a fun time.
I never had too much fun.
No, you had all the fun in the world.
kidding?
If you have good shooters and you get them shots, what else is there to do?
And shooters and passers, that's what you need.
Weakest fundamental in the league now is passing, and has been for a while.
Everybody wants to shoot a three.
Yeah, well, and they can throw the ball in the general area of the guy they're passing to, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying throwing the ball so when the guy catches it, he's in a shooting position. He doesn't even have to hesitate. He's up and shooting the ball. And the general area is nice, but then you got to pick it up and get squared away, and by that time a defender's there, and so they're. We ran the break a particular way, but I look now and everybody runs to the circle, to the 3-point line.
Right.
So the defenders, they just go back to the 3-point line. There's nobody. You talk about having post play. There's nobody in there.
Different game.
Guys, can you believe it's been 50 years since
Not,
we all started together?
not a chance. No, I was
Went
thinking-
like that to me.